most profitable customer is and how to create the optimized revenue equation. Also, you will learn how to work with OTAs and strengthen your other streams of income. Today, we are very happy to have Kate Berta, founder and principal at Kate Berta & Co. Kate works with companies to accelerate revenue by elevating their understanding of sales, revenue management, and marketing. Prior to starting her own firm, Kate has spent 27 years in the hotel industry as a VP of Sales and Marketing with Hyatt Hotels, leading revenue for franchise ownership and management, and has also worked with Marriott, Hilton, REIT, and IHG. Her experience covers full service, select service, and extended stay properties. She has led revenue teams for startup companies, growth acquisitions, market shifts, downturns, and disposition.
Well, thank you so much, Kat. I really appreciate such a lovely introduction and the opportunity to host this webinar. In our work, we have done a great deal around clarity and innovation and strategy within revenue. And what has been shown and what has been proven that the organizations that lack in clarity in relation to their strategy have a distinctly higher failure rate to those revenue goals. And that strategy pathway is absolutely mission critical to the best of class execution on revenue achievement. So for today's time, we're going to be focusing on that clarity of how do we optimize different revenue channels and how do we activate them to get to our best performance. We do a lot of work within Kate & Co. as well as it relates to connection and how does our sales, revenue management, and marketing teams connect with clients and accounts so they're able to elevate their customer engagement to accelerate revenue as a part of our other piece of our work.
And I'm sorry, Kate, just before you proceed, would you mind just flipping back to that disclaimer slide for me, please? Mm-hmm. Excellent. And I'm sorry, I just have to go through this one. Before handing this back to Kate, I just wanted to read this for any of those that have dialed in as opposed to actually watching the live presentation. AHOA does not provide legal or business advice or representation to any individuals, persons, or members. AHOA goes to great lengths to ensure the information it provides is accurate and useful, but strongly recommends all persons and AHOA members obtain professional advice and or legal representation which is appropriate to their particular situation. Further, AHOA does not endorse any companies nor any of the products or services they offer. So there will be questions and answers, Q&A available at the end of the presentation. For any questions you may have, please just type them into the questions section. Now, we're very excited to have you all here today, and with no further delay, I will ask Kate to continue.
Thank you. Wonderful. So, AHOA has been very diligent on educational opportunities for you as members. So Kat and I had many discussions just about the importance of the dialogue in looking at revenue, particularly within sales, revenue management, marketing, and now the ever-evolving digital marketing, which keeps people in a quandary time after time after time. One of my colleagues and friends has joined the call too, who's heading up a group that's focused on digital marketing and e-commerce, particularly with John Moore. So John, welcome to the call. So we're looking at how do we have education, drive revenue, and look at revenue channels beyond kind of the ever-present online travel agency discussions. This year's AHOA conference in Nashville, I thought the Design for Success theme was really fitting for today's discussion as well. A strategy is very much a thoughtful design process as it is within facilities and any other type of design. So let's give kind of an evolution of revenue channels, because I think it's important for you just to understand where we are, where we're going, and where we came from. So a number of years ago, we really referred to yield management, and this is the agrarian kind of conversation around min-max stays and minimum stays of 2 and maximum stays of 4, so we could really kind of yield manage our inventory to arrive at higher revenue. That finally gave way to revenue management, which all of you are very familiar with, where we're looking at forecasting, pricing within the weekday and the weekend. We're talking about how do we optimize revenue, or how do we look at revenue channels such as OTAs, group ceilings, group floors, full pattern length of stay. Now what's coming about is revenue optimization. And this is really looking at the complete segmentation of all revenue channels. So it goes beyond just revenue management. It goes beyond just sales and marketing, but is really the alchemy of all 3 of those. And what revenue optimization does for us is it gives real clarity around what is optimal in each of our revenue channels. How do we focus our internal energy towards those particular areas? And also, if we don't have, let's say, revenue management, or if we don't have a digital marketing team within our 4 walls as a company, do we look at how do we leverage external resources, be it that from the brand or other companies that are out there and developing in this area as well. So let's go forward and talk about what we're going to talk about. I'm going to explain what optimization means, understand what optimal may mean for you and your team, because each hotel is different, each market is different, and so there's not a one-size-fits-all, but rather a journey to what's looking at the optimal range or optimal pathway. And then for us to have kind of the first step for a pathway to strategy that's linked to what I call the science. So let's understand what a high-level optimization might look like. At its very core, we're looking at each segmentation that characterizes the proper revenue channels for your hotel. In some hotels, we may need to have a cadre, a full list of different revenue channels that are prevalent to us. In others, they may not be as important. We may not need to track them as much within segmentation. We also have to have a transparency of revenue, ADR, and rooms sold for each channel, and the variance from year over year, week over week, so we can see a trend line. And then lastly, we need a strategy for growth within each channel based upon an optimization plan that's derived from the science of the hotel. So when I speak about science, I talk about science, process, art, and then sales operations. Is so many times what's missing in hotels and hotel strategy is the actual science of what does this hotel need to gain more NOI or gain more revenue. Can we actually say it and understand in a very clear pathway, which we'll explain a little bit later. So I have to get the OTA discussion out of the way because I know that most of you on the phone have had this same love-hate relationship that I have with them. Here's what I've always said, and even when I was within Hyatt, I could say very easily, listen, I could stop OTAs overnight. However, it takes you away from having billions of travelers on the shelf for millions of travelers to see. So here's the thing. It's an extremely viable revenue channel when it's properly managed. The problem is, all too often, it's not managed correctly. It's managed as an account rather than a fill. And of course, there's the double jeopardy of not only is it the most costly, but many times it's, has the least ADR contribution of all of the channels. So as you read through, at the very top is the reasons why we love them, and at the very bottom is kind of why we hate them. But again, I think the takeaway is, if managed properly, these can be an effective revenue channel for you, particularly if you understand the segmentation within all of the internet, within the internet itself, which we will show in a later slide. The other portion here is focusing your energy on the most profitable clients. and customers and revenue channels. Many times when I've gone into a hotel, there's a great deal of energy that's spent on the OTAs, yet there's so many other channels that are being profitable channels that aren't being looked at. So let's take a look at what I mean by segmentation. And this is a representation, an example of what one may look like. This is not a specific hotel, and in fact, it's a conglomeration of a number of different hotels. But what we want to take a look at is, first of all, how the breakdown of each one, and I'm going to have 3 different slides here. This one focuses on revenue. I always start with revenue because that's the main driver, and then we can decide which lever we want to pull if it's ADR or occupancy. So let's just take a look at it, and there's a couple of things I wanted to highlight. And I'm sure you, as you're looking at this, you're seeing many opportunities and many questions that have in your mind, but I just singled out a few of them just to kind of walk you through it. So let's take a look at the first one, where we have our best available rate. In this case, our best available rate has gone down across the board, not only in total, but both weekday and weekend. And so it begs the question of why. Why was that? Why did that happen? Was that something that was strategic? Was that something that just happened in a market flow? Or was it something that we took our eye off the ball? But immediately, because of our segmentation here, we're able to see very clearly the trends, be it either positive or negative, and what that may mean to us. If we take a look at the next group here of our national and our national and local negotiated rates, you can see that we've kind of stayed steady, a bit flat with a little bit of rise. However, if you take a look at the growth of these, most of the growth is happening within the weekend sector. And so, again, why could that be happening? It's just highlighting some things that give us an idea of where we can spend our energy in finding where we can optimize. The next one we take a look at, this group of hotels had broken their internet into merchant and opaque. And the great thing is, the merchant is going up, which normally is your higher rated accounts or your higher rated revenue channels within internet. And the great thing is that their opaque works on their internet are going down. And so again, is this strategic? My hope is that it is, that they're saying, you know what, we're not going to take opaque. We're going to limit it. We're going to drive it down, particularly where we have other opportunities. So we're going to look at this a little bit further out and see what trues out, because again, we're just looking at the revenue line here. The one thing that did highlight here for me, and I don't know if you saw it as well, is that we have a lot of growth that's happening during the weekday, particularly within the merchant model. And so what does that mean? Does that mean that some of our corporate accounts are going towards other hotels.com or other merchant channels? Or is it that we're trying to get new buyers and new experiences in that weekday? So we're going to take it a step further and take a look at the occupancy. Oh, excuse me. I wanted to point out discount qualified. And in this situation, in this hotel group, what that means is AAA. And what is amazing here is the growth that's happening. This is one of the higher growth channels that they have here at 10% a clip. Now, of course, it's a smaller percentage, but AAA has kind of gotten, as I've met with different owners and franchisee groups, has kind of gotten a bad name because they feel like they're restricted and it's not a great rate and so forth. But here's the thing. It's completely yieldable, and you can choose your discount. So it's one of the, I think, overlooked channels. Lastly, we're going to move on to ADR. So again, having this understanding and having this segmentation, you're able to see some of the trends happening within each segmentation. So let's take, again, a look at our best available rate. Our best available rate went up 5.8% year over year. And most of it happened on the weekend with very nominal growth during the weekday. So it's one of our higher rated accounts, or one of our higher rated channels, yet our growth during the weekday, when you expect it to be stronger, is fair. Now, the good part is we're getting pretty good rates within our weekend rate. Now, in this case, this channel include weekend rate in their best available rate. So yet they're growing it, so you can kind of see how that transforms. Now let's take a look at the national and local. So within the national and local, they're pretty heavily discounted as it relates to other revenue channels. And their growth rate within ADR lacks in comparison to their overall growth of 5.9. And so one kind of wonders, was that a strategic decision, or was it that maybe our teams weren't armed with the negotiation skills that they needed? Was it that our national accounts have had more rooms that had come in and we didn't yield it properly and maybe hold the allotments to the best available rate? Again, it kind of brings up questions of how do we optimize those channels and set strategy towards them. I wanted to point out again here the rate fall off between your merchant and opaque, just as kind of I foreshadowed in the slide prior of how discounted that opaque network is, and that they're, although it's very, very discounted, they've been trying very, very hard to grow with that 9.5. So again, having that transparency even into the merchant and opaque can really set kind of the tone and understanding of how you feel about OTAs as it relates to different revenue channels within that within the internet. This was another one that I wanted to bring out just as far as a strategy. Here's our package rate, which is one of the highest next to association and convention and our consortia. Yet, if you recall in the slide previous, it has dropped off incredibly. Now, the rate has gone up. I mean, it's gone up 11.7%. Yet at $122, I would expect that we wouldn't see that drop-off that we did in revenue. And now, again, a lot of times this could be because people don't think about packages much. Maybe they don't have a digital marketing program or team that's helping them to communicate and to package these together for revenue management to put on the shelf. There could be a number of different reasons. But what this segmentation brings out is this is one of your most profitable revenue channels, and it's increasing in ADR, yet we're not giving a lot of attention to it from an occupancy side. And again, consortia. I bring this up because many times I hear owners and franchisee groups talk about how they don't want to play with some of the big consortia houses and that they're expensive and that it may cause, you know, a great deal of strife and so forth. But here, if you take a look at it, this is your second highest rated revenue channel. And so I would pay the 10, I would pay even 15% on that number to increase that, because number one, I'm getting awareness of some national and local accounts that I may not in normal negotiations and haven't experienced. And it's not hurting my bottom line whatsoever. And consortia has kind of gotten a bit of a dirty name, but they're growing revenue at 5%, and maybe even more if there was a concentration on it. So lastly, let's take a look at occupancy and see what kind of trues out for us. Again, the best available rate here in this example has gone down. Now remember, this is one of our top rates in this group of hotels at $115. So my biggest concern is, why is it? Again, I brought it up was this a strategic move, or was this how we executed, or was it a shift within the marketplace? We understand what the possible next steps should be. With our corporate, national, and local, what we're seeing here is exactly what we thought, what we foreshadowed before is we saw an increase in revenue, but it was coming from the occupancy side of the coin rather than ADR. Now, again, it may be that a strategic decision. Hopefully, it was a strategic decision rather than, our sales force maybe not being in concert with a goal to drive ADR, or we haven't had the negotiations or the information that we need to give to the brands to make more effective negotiations. So here we are down at Internet, both the merchant and opaque, and again, it brings out the fact that this hotel, I would guess, had a very strategic stance on how they're going to deal with opaque, particularly during the weekday and really the weekend. And you can see that fall off of occupancy that they were saying, you know what, if we're going to take it, we're going to take it on the rate side of it, and we're going to only use it when we have to. And on the merchant side of it, we're going to try to grow rate as much as we can, but obviously occupancy, we're going to take it where we need it. And I bring up this package. As you remember, it was $122 average daily rate, yet there hasn't been a lot of attention paid to driving that from an occupancy standpoint. This is a huge opportunity for our teams, not only to drive occupancy, but create RevPAR. I would much rather take away some of those merchant, the inventory that we put towards the merchant model, and package it and sell it through a package deal and drive that rate up. So why did I take you through all of this? I wanted to give you just one other different look. This is another group of hotels that decided, I think this is important for us just to point out, because they decided to take the Internet and break it down even further into merchant, opaque, bundled, advanced purchase, and other. And you can see why they did that, because of variance of ADR. And it's not the same customer. The customer that books through hotels.com is not necessarily the same customer that books through a Priceline, as we all know. But if we break this down, and I like this because it's one snapshot of revenue, ADR, and rooms sold on one page, we're able to see where our energy should be put, how we should be looking at these channels separately, and what does optimize look like for us. I'm going to click through this just in lieu of time. So what was our learning from this transparency? Why did I take this much time for us when we're really trying to talk about optimizing hotels? It's very difficult for a hotel to optimize their segments without a very informed understanding of where the opportunities may be. If you didn't have kind of this breakdown and look at it through the revenue, rooms sold, and ADR, you may not be able to see with clarity that you need to build the correct strategy on where you should go. It helps you clarify the science to create the right strategy. And it prioritizes the focus of your internal team on your internal team and your external resources. And what I mean by that is marketing, revenue management, and sales. And the external, again, as I mentioned earlier, the external resources, it may be the brand. It may be a group that you hire that has that expertise around digital marketing, like John's group, that can help you to understand what that alchemy and what that may look like. Lastly, and one of the most important points here, is it helps us to major in the majors. So many times when I'm working with teams, what I see is they're majoring in the minors, or they're focusing in their areas that are not the most profitable clients, that are the most demanding. Major in the majors, and you're able to see which of those major drivers are available to you. Transparency. So how do we do this? How do we build this optimal hotel pathway? So I'm going to show you what good looks like, and then I'm going to show you what great looks like. So what good looks like is we're going to first use the performance and prognostications and market data to really look at what our revenue targets are going to be for the next year. Then we break down that revenue per segment, and of course those driving segments may be different depending on your market, your hotel, your brand of hotel, also your size. if you're a full service and flex service or extended stay. And then within each segment, there's a further drill down to occupancy and ADR. And then what we do is we look at each segment individually and create a range around occupancy and ADR. So we start setting up boundaries and not necessarily barriers, but demarcation between what that range would be. And then we create the strategies that support those boundaries that we've set for each segmentation. And then we develop the optimized plan. So this is good. What great looks like is something like this, and then I'll explain the difference. Is there's almost two sides of the camp kind of working on the same thing, and then we come together in the middle. So on the left-hand side, we have revenue targets created based upon market prognostication, historical performance, pro forma. On the right-hand side, we start looking at the revenue breakdown per segment on a historical basis and start looking at how do those increases look for next year. Can we increase local a little bit more? Maybe we want to take away from national and start looking at local because they don't have so many demands around them, such as LRA or commissions or contractual obligations. On the other side, we start setting the revenue targets for next year. On this side, again, we go through the room sold and ADR historically to set the new rates. And then we go through the segmentation analysis of what does that range look like per segment. And then we come together and compare notes and create this optimized plan together, which we then derive this strategy based upon those segment increases. Now, why this is sometimes better, and why I say this is what the great ones do, is all too often what I see is hotels backing into that RevPAR number, where somebody said, Star and PwC say 6% increase, 6% increase. I'm sorry, did I go dead?
You're fine, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear it. We can hear you.
Great. Thank you. I think somebody must have muted. I didn't get used to it. Okay, so we have both sides come together to create this plan, And so many times what we see hotels doing is if PwC or STR comes out and says it's 6%, they're backing into that 6% number. Well, it could mean that, many markets are experiencing 7, 8%. And in this situation, we're coming and we're focusing on what this hotel can do and then backing into the plan, or then creating the plan rather than kind of backing into that number. Now, I wish I could, for each one of you on the call, I wish that I could walk you through exactly how to do this. One, it's too time consuming for a webinar. However, not difficult and so important. So we're going to move on. So why is this important? Why should we go through all of this? Why should we spend the time? And it sounds like, there's a lot of meetings, and it sounds like there's, I'd rather have my sales people selling and my revenue management people revenue managing and our marketing people putting, marketing plans together. Well, the reason is because clarity brings us a simplification, and with simplification is the ability to deliver and execute. And I quote many times, my favorite Shakespearean quote is, "Life is a tale told by idiots full of sound and fury that signify nothing." And so many times when I walk into hotels, I see Shakespeare at play, where we're busy doing a lot of activity. There's we base, as an industry, we tend to base our productivity on activity, and what happens is an activity fatigue, because it's easier to say to Kat, this is all the things that I've done, yet how much of what you've done actually relates back to that simplification of what that segmentation analysis and what that optimization plan is spelling out for us. This helps our sales team, our marketing team, and our revenue management team because they know what they're hunting. I use the hunter example here because we've always related to our salespeople as hunters. But so many times what we find is I'm not a hunter, but what I would imagine, if we're not sure what we're hunting, it's awfully difficult to deliver upon it. So if we have this clarification and this real simplification of this is the animal that I hunt, it's very easy for me to prioritize and align my energy and my team against that to increase your NOI. We're much more effective because our world is not about activity. Our world is about alignment to goals and to tactics that align with it. And it's much easier for you to manage because you can very clearly see if your strategy and tactics align with the optimized plan. Now, it's awfully hard to hunt if you don't know your target. An unclear understanding of what the hotel needs to succeed, either on NOI or however you're judging your hotels, it's very difficult for managers to execute upon. It's also very difficult for you to manage in that space because you're not sure the value of the work that's being done. So now what? If I was to kind of illustrate one of the what this looks like, think about moving from revenue management to optimized revenue, where you're looking at the whole segmentation and you're looking at all of your players. You're looking at revenue management, you're looking at your marketing team, your digital marketing team, you're looking at your sales team, and how do we create this optimized revenue? Move away from an aggregated segmentation or only looking at a P&L to an enhanced segmentation with revenue, room sold, and ADR. Move from a performa sets revenue goals to performa projections and the optimized plan sets revenue goals, and goals communicated with orchestrated tactics to goals communicated with supporting strategies, with tactics being dependent upon their outcomes. Many marketing plans, as I have looked at them in the past, if I look at what their strategies are, many times I see tactics rather than the overall strategies. Tactics change out on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. However, the strategy stays the same. And many times I like it when teams say, you know what, we were going down the wrong rabbit hole with some of these tactics and we had to completely overhaul because it wasn't moving the needle at all. That's when I know I've got an effective team. Random acts of revenue. And this is what I look at kind of being a bit of yesteryear, where revenue management handles the retail space and OTA. Sales manages the negotiated in the group, and then marketing supports sales. Now it's a collaborative and holistic approach to revenue, where what I like to call the revenue trifecta, marketing, and more importantly, digital marketing, revenue management, and sales are looking at these areas of optimization, and they're looking at it from a customer experience line of here for each revenue channel represents a customer, and how do we as a team connect with them throughout their purchase phase or their buying cycle to when they arrive at the hotel, and who is best to make that happen? Is it digital marketing? Is it revenue management? Is it sales? Versus kind of a segmented approach. So that concludes our time. We've got a couple minutes left here for questions. And again, this is just a very quick glance at a very robust process that's a lot of times fun and exciting, but it gives you a purview into moving from revenue management to optimized to an optimized hotel, and then how to activate it. So Kat, I'm not sure if there's any questions, but I'd love to open it up for discussion.
Yes, actually I have one here to send your way, and thank you very much for your presentation. So the question I have is, can you please explain the difference between the internet merchant versus opaque?
Yeah, that's a great one. You know what? It was best explained to me by a great revenue manager at IHG. Her name's Stephanie Oakes. If you think about women's hosiery, the opaque tights, you can't see through them. It's opaque. You can't see through it. So an opaque website is like a price line where I am not choosing a particular hotel. I'm not choosing the Marriott downtown. I'm not choosing, you know, the Hilton out by the convention space. I'm choosing a price, and hotels are bidding on it. Whereas a merchant model, like a hotels.com, Expedia, I am selecting the hotel that I choose to go to. So for an example, this weekend, my husband and I wanted to get away for a 4th of July, get away from the house. We wanted to go downtown, but we were very specific about the type of hotel we wanted to stay at. And so I booked through hotels.com, and I could see the hotels versus a price line. So it's always great to think about opaque. You just can't see it, just like an opaque window, you can't see through it. Opaque hosiery, whatever makes you remember it, that's the difference. And I think the other point is thinking about what type of traveler chooses an opaque. They're very, very inelastic as far as pricing. They're buying on price. They're buying solely on price. Whereas a merchant model, the hotels.com, I may be a little bit more brand centric. I may be more location specific. I may be looking for and comparing, you know, certain things where I can take a swath across a group of hotels to see who has the better restaurant or who has the better lounge or the better pool or a proximity. And then, of course, brands.com, I'm brand loyal, and I choose to go to X brand. Thank you for the question.
Kate, this is John. If I could even add some color commentary.
Please.
You know, another key element in using your opaque inventory is you really, another way of describing it is distressed inventory. You know, you only want to put inventory on that's opaque, that's all strictly price driven. You know, when you know you're not going to be selling out, and a lot of times hotels will use a, you know, over 85% or over 90% as a benchmark to say, okay, empower my revenue team to load opaque business onto the shelf. Whereas your merchant rooms, you basically want on the shelf all the time, so that you can get the, you know, the length of stays you want, you can get the average rates you want to get, and you can, you know, build your or maximize your revenue. But that opaque stuff really, you know, you got to watch that really closely. And a lot of times, you know, I've seen, Kate's seen the same thing, is you have revenue management that's out of control, where you're running high occupancies, but yet still selling a fair amount of opaque rates. And that's a real important thing for people, you know, probably who are in a leadership role to, you know, cut through the red tape and ask those kind of questions.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we have just seen so many times where, you know, kind of the moniker we use is that set it and let it, and it becomes almost an account rather than just exactly what John had said, more of a fill strategy. And it's been really interesting as of late when we're seeing the merchant models such as, you know, hotels.com, how far out they're booking, which has changed dramatically. And again, so it becomes more of how do you, it's almost like managing your best available rate or your retail, you know, your retail rate further out. And we haven't seen that like we have it in recent quarters. Thank you, Kat. I appreciate the question.
You're welcome. And I know we're getting 10 on time, but I have one other question for you, and then we will have to get going. but it came in saying, how do smaller hotels keep up without multiple people doing marketing?
How do smaller hotels keep up with marketing?
Without multiple people doing the marketing.
Yes, yeah, that's an excellent question, and especially the power of marketing and channels and so forth. You know, I got to tell you, although digital marketing looks very confusing, and John, I'm sure you're going to want to pipe in here too. But although on the outset, digital marketing can be very confusing and overwhelming. It is more about understanding what you need and what you're trying to drive at. And it kind of goes back to this optimization plan. Because if you're trying to, if you're looking at it and you say, hey, listen, I have, I'm really trying to drive my package, or I'm really trying to, this is where I'm trying to focus, that strategy becomes much more clear. Many times, and I'm sure, John, you've experienced this, where we'll walk into hoteliers, and because there's so much buzz around social media, they feel like they have to be on Facebook, and they have to be on LinkedIn, and they have to be on Twitter, and they have to be all of the, on Snapchat, and they have to be here, and they have to be there. And many times, number one, that's too much energy spent in too many areas, so it's not, the strategy is being everywhere is not a strategy. But saying, hey, listen, if in this example, if package is what you're driving, what are the most important areas for you to be, where is it most important for you to be on? And having a more synchronized plan than, kind of a full shotgun approach, as well as you should be leveraging your brands and saying, and rather than them coming to you, you reaching out to them and saying, here's the areas that I'm trying to drive. Number one, I'm trying to drive awareness. How do I do that? Number two, these are 3 areas that I think have potential within digital marketing that I need help with. If you have hotels that aren't related to a brand, I would find somebody such as myself, such as John, and there's many others, good people out there that can walk you through it, because it seems like it's overwhelming and tiring, but it's really about clear strategy. John, I've talked long enough. This is one of your favorite areas. Would you be kind of expound?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I'd say the number one piece of advice I give anybody is to optimize the website, your hotel website, before you do anything else, and make sure it's there's a number of strategies to optimizing your website, from having good links to really great photography. Probably photography is the number one, important thing that shoppers look at today. They want to see exactly what they're buying. But generally speaking, your hotel website is your lowest cost revenue generator. And before I would sink money into OTAs, before I would sink money into social media, as Kate mentioned, I would really make sure that that's, really working well. Now, I would agree that, John Jones off the street doesn't know a heck of a lot about optimizing a website, and it really, does require a professional company that are not that expensive, who can do that work on your behalf. And, whether you have strength in organic keywords, or whether you need to purchase keywords to get some type of visibility on Google as the primary search engine, those are all things that, really could be helpful to you. But the original question was, how do you keep multiple people, from all owning a piece of that? I would highly suggest that you have one expert on your team, whether it's a general manager, if you have a director of sales and marketing, or if you have, a combined revenue and sales and marketing scope, that person owns it and works with a professional company who can help you, do the things. And I'll tell you that algorithms change constantly. The Googles, the Bings, Yahoos of the world are constantly changing their algorithms just to keep their business model working and keeping the need for updates frequent. Hopefully that helps.
Thank you very much, Sean.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and if you have any further questions, this is such a great topic. I would love to answer any questions or have conversations with you offline, and of course I can have more specific conversations as it relates to your hotels and what you're striving to do. So thank you very much, Kat, and thank you to AHOA. It's a great organization, and I'm proud to be a member, and I'm proud to be able to help grow your educational foundation.
Well, thank you so much, Kay. We certainly appreciated the information that was presented, as well as John. Thank you for all that you have said. So I will wish you all a wonderful afternoon and a great weekend. Thank you for dialing in, and stay tuned for our next presentation, which will be on the 14th, the next step in accelerating revenue.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Take care now. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.